sees what's happening, that fascism has taken hold in America, and it's terrifying, not just for America, but for the world.
And you arrived over going, you know what, I'm going to move to Ireland. Sure, it'll be grand. I'll sit down, eat some potatoes, have some whatever.
Kyo's crisps are out there.
Put to work straight away by this young man here.
You've probably heard Rosie O'Donnell criticize Donald Trump before, but this time, the conversation takes a much more personal turn. Instead of simply responding to another headline or political controversy, she's explaining why she says she made the life-changing decision to leave the United States and start over in Ireland. Her comments aren't just about politics. They're about what she says led her to believe she and her family would be better off somewhere else. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. As the interview unfolds, Rosie lays out her reasons in detail. She explains what finally convinced her it was time to leave. And when it comes to Donald Trump, she doesn't hold back. Whether you agree with her perspective or not, there's no denying she's making some strong claims that have already sparked a lot of discussion online. So let's watch the interview together, hear exactly what she has to say in her own words, and then stick around until the end. Because once it's over, I'll break down the biggest moments and give you my thoughts on everything that was said.
Morning to you both.
Lovely to have you.
Lovely to see you. We're delighted that you're here and joining us. And we have to ask you, how are you finding Ireland? You're only here since January.
Yes.
How's it going?
It's amazing. It's better than I could have imagined, and I never imagined leaving the United States. I didn't even have an Irish passport, although my siblings do, because I thought, well, I'm never moving out of the United States. I'm kind of like a stay-home mom kind of person. And but then when the election happened, and you know, it was quite obvious what was going to occur as they put out a book that announced it, Project 2025, I knew that it was time for me and my young autistic child to come here.
And let's talk about that a little bit for people who might not know, because the beef between you and Donald Trump go back to the days of when you were a talk show host comedian. He was a personality.
A reality show. He had The Apprentice, which was all fiction.
Yes.
And a lot of people in America didn't know that it was fiction because they sold him as America's biggest successful businessman, and he had been bankrupt 6 times, and he had lots of charges of sexual abuse against him, and he is, you know, known for lying and for corruption, and he had a charity that he and his family now can never do a charity again in New York because they stole money from children who had cancer.
And this is all fact.
All you need to find out these facts is a computer, people. I am not an investigative journalist. I simply lived there my whole life. And in New York, where he grew up as well, we're around the same age. I'm 63, he's 107. Is that what he is now? I'm not sure. But, and so I've known who he was from the get-go.
But a lot of male chat show hosts were saying the same things that you were.
Yes.
But it was just you. You just got under his skin.
And he went crazy in a way that I was shocked. And it's almost 20 years since that show.
And he's still, to this very day.
To this day, at the debate, they said to him, you call women pigs, gross, disgusting, fat, ugly. And he said, no, only Rosie O'Donnell. To roarious applause and laughter in the audience. And I was at home with my kids watching it going, how do you explain this? You know, luckily it was they were pretty young at the time, but now my youngest is 12. My other ones are in their 20s. Yeah. So it's really to protect my 12-year-old that I knew I had to come.
Because let's talk about that. A lot of people said they would leave should Trump become president and all this kind of stuff. You did leave for reasons of safety. What was happening to you in the streets?
Well, it wasn't so much in the streets, but after he won, I was in CVS with my child, and 2 different people, one with a MAGA hat and one a Trump supporter, came over and told me with curse words that their guy won. And, you know, said the F word in front of my child, who said, why are people cursing at us? And I said, well, remember I told you that there was a guy who's not so nice and he's running for president again? Remember when you were a little baby and he was the president and everything went wrong? She said, yes. I said, well, he's back now. And she said, so it's time for us to go.
And that's what, because you did stay during his first presidency.
I did, and it was a difficult time for me mentally and emotionally.
Because this has obviously taken a toll on you over these years.
You know, it's something to go from being a kind of known celebrity in America that people liked, that won a lot of, that had a lot of accolades, that had a lot of, to despised by half the population. Half the country thinks that he is the new coming of Christ, and half the country sees what's happening, that fascism has taken hold in America, and it's terrifying, not just for America, but for the world.
And you arrived over going, you know what, I'm going to move to Ireland. Sure, it'll be grand. I'll sit down, eat some potatoes, have some whatever.
Keogh's crisps are out there.
Put to work straight away by this young man here.
That was certainly an interview that isn't going to stop people talking anytime soon. Rosie O'Donnell made it clear that she still has deep concerns about Donald Trump. And she didn't hold back while explaining why she believes leaving the United States was the right decision for her family. One thing that also stood out to me was her mention of Project 2025. Whether people agree with her interpretation or not, it's a topic that has generated a lot of political discussion. And it's one that many viewers feel deserves more attention than it receives in the mainstream conversation. After watching the interview, I decided to look back at some of Donald Trump's past public remarks about Rosie O'Donnell. Over the years, he's referred to her with a long list of insults, including calling her crude, rude, obnoxious, and dumb. He's also described her as a loser, said she was out of control. And during the 2016 presidential campaign, he once again singled her out when asked about comments he'd made toward women. There were more personal remarks as well, including criticism of her appearance and her personal life. Now, regardless of where you stand politically, it's hard to ignore just how long this public feud has lasted. This wasn't a one-time exchange. It became a pattern that played out over many years, with both figures continuing to criticize each other in very public ways. That's one of the reasons this story continues to attract so much attention even today. Politics is always going to be passionate, and disagreements are inevitable. But when political rivalries become deeply personal, they often dominate the conversation just as much as the policies themselves. As always, I'd love to hear your perspective. Do you think Rosie's concerns are justified, or do you see this situation differently? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.